March 12, 1983, 3:47 a.m., Sunset Sound Studios, Los Angeles. In the control room of Studio B, 34-year-old sound engineer David Leonard was sipping his fifth caffeine-packed cup of coffee. He was at the end of an 18-hour recording session, and his eyes were about to close from exhaustion. Just then, the door opened and a small man in a purple jacket walked in. David looked at him and smiled slightly. "Son, the recording sessions are over. Come back tomorrow." Prince just smiled. But 4 minutes later, David Leonard would witness the most incredible thing he'd ever heard in his 16-year career in the music industry. And the truly shocking part hadn't even begun yet. David Leonard wasn't just an ordinary sound engineer. When he started working in 1967, he was at one of the most prestigious studios in Los Angeles. Fleetwood Mac, the Eagles, the Doors. He'd recorded them all. His father was also a sound engineer. As a child, he'd watch his father in the studios. "David," his father would say, "great music takes patience. An artist in a hurry can never create a classic." This philosophy was ingrained in David's DNA. He believed in technical perfection. Every note, every beat, every tone had to be flawless, and that meant countless takes, countless edits, hours of post-production. Last week, he and a group had spent 14 hours just fine-tuning the tone of a single guitar solo. David was proud of this. "This is professionalism," he told the group, "taking the time for perfection." Prince, on the other hand, came from a completely different world. He was 25 years old and had just moved from Minneapolis to Los Angeles. When he woke up that morning in his small house at Paisley Park, he had a complete song in his head. The melody, the rhythm, every instrument's part, everything. It was as if he were listening to it on the radio. Music wasn't a mathematical language to him, it was a way of breathing. But he'd had problems in other studios before. The engineers didn't understand him. "Slow down," they'd say. "Let's record everything separately. Don't rush." But for Prince, music was a living thing. If you broke it apart, it would lose its soul. Tonight was different. Tonight he had to prove something to David. Not just to David, but to the entire music industry. "Hello," Prince said quietly. "I have a session at 4 o'clock. David raised his eyebrows. 4 o'clock? "Son, it's almost 4, but your name isn't in the logbook." Prince pulled a crumpled piece of paper from his jacket pocket, a studio reservation form. David examined it, his eyes widening. There really was a reservation. Prince Rogers Nelson, 4 to 8 a.m. David sighed. A 4-hour session meant he wouldn't be able to get home until 8 o'clock at the earliest. His wife Diane would be upset. Today was their wedding anniversary and they had dinner plans, but now he'd be stuck here until 8 o'clock. "All right," David said wearily. "What do you want to record?" "A whole song." "How long will it take?" 4 minutes, David laughed. "Son, recording a song doesn't take 4 minutes. Just setting up the instruments takes an hour, then the sound check, then the recording, then the mix. We're talking at least 6 hours, maybe more." Prince shook his head. "No, I'll finish it in 4 minutes." David's smile froze. "Excuse me? In 4 minutes? If you're thinking no way right now, just like David, hit the subscribe button. Yes, in one take, without a single mistake." David leaned back in his chair. He'd been working in studios for 20 years and had never heard such a claim. A young rock band had come in last month. "We'll finish the album in 2 days, they'd said. It took 3 weeks. "Son, which instruments are you going to play?" "All of them." "All of them?" "Drums, bass guitar, keyboards, electric guitar, vocals, everything." David's patience was being tested. "Look, you're still young. The music industry doesn't work like that. Creating a song takes time. Each instrument is recorded separately. Each track is worked on. Editing is done, mixing is done. It's a process. Even Stevie Wonder spends days on a single song." "I love Stevie Wonder," Prince said calmly. "But I'm not Stevie Wonder. I work differently." "Different?" David stood up. Now he was truly angry. He was fed up with this kid's arrogance. "Son, this is Sunset Sound. The people recording here are professionals. Led Zeppelin recorded here. The Rolling Stones recorded here. If you want to be a serious artist, you need to learn professional standards. Otherwise, you're just wasting time. You're wasting my time too." Silence. Prince just looked at David. There was no anger in his eyes, only a calm determination. David had seen that look before, a few times. True geniuses had that look, but more often than not, that look was just the arrogance of overly confident young people. "Give me a chance," Prince finally said. 4 minutes. If it's terrible, I'll leave without getting paid. But if it works, you'll never underestimate me again. If you were here, would you believe Prince? Be honest in the comments. David took a deep breath. All right, he thought. It's time to teach this kid a lesson. Then I'll go home and give my wife her anniversary gift. All right, said David. Go get ready. 4 minutes. Let's see what happens. Prince walked into the studio's main room. David watched from the control room. Prince walked around the drum set, checking every piece. Then he picked up the bass guitar and tuned it. He lightly touched the keys of the keyboard. He was testing everything, but with quick, confident steps. As David watched this, doubts crossed his mind. Maybe this kid really was talented? But no, impossible. No one could record a full song in 4 minutes. Prince sat down behind the drum set, adjusted his position, and put on his headphones. Then he looked at David and nodded. I'm ready. David's hand hovered over the record button. He hesitated for a moment, then he pressed it. And in that moment, David Leonard began to witness the most incredible 4 minutes in music history. Prince started with the drums. But this wasn't just ordinary drumming. The very first beat caught David's attention. The rhythm was flawless. Every beat was spot on. The timing was perfect. This wasn't just playing the drums, it was speaking through them. David leaned forward, concentrating. Wait, he thought, this kid is really good. Exactly 50 seconds later, Prince suddenly stopped. David frantically checked the buttons. Had something gone wrong? But no, the recording was still going. Prince leaped out from behind the drums and switched to the bass guitar. His headphones were still on. The recording was still going. And Prince began playing a bass line that perfectly matched the drum rhythm he had recorded. David's mouth dropped open. This is impossible, he muttered to himself. Because Prince wasn't just playing. He was hearing the drum track he'd recorded earlier in his head and accompanying it perfectly. No timing errors, no tempo deviations. He was working like a metronome. David had been doing this for 16 years and had never seen anything like it. 1 minute and 40 seconds. Prince set down the bass guitar and rushed to the keyboard. His fingers danced across the keys. A melody began to emerge, and that melody, David's hair stood on end. This song was like a living organism. It was being created in real time, built layer by layer. David looked at the monitors. The sound levels were perfect. The frequencies were balanced. This kid wasn't just a musician, he was his own production engineer too. As he recorded each instrument, he was thinking about how it would fit with the others. 2 minutes and 30 seconds. Electric guitar. Prince grabbed the guitar and stepped in front of the amplifier. The distortion was perfect. The solo line was in ideal harmony with the drums and bass. David was now on his feet. He stood at the mixing console, his eyes wide with shock. His hands were trembling slightly. Damn, he whispered, this can't be real. 3 minutes and 15 seconds. Vocals. Prince rushed to the microphone, and that voice was the purest, most emotional thing David had heard in 16 years. The falsetto was perfect. The timing was flawless. Every word was exactly where it should be. The emotional weight was palpable in every note. David's eyes welled up. This must be what music is, he thought. Raw, real, alive. 4 minutes. Prince set the microphone down. He was out of breath but smiling. Sweat was pouring off him, but there was a light in his eyes. He looked toward the control room and nodded at David. David stood frozen in place. His mind wasn't working. His heart was racing. He'd been doing this job for 16 years and had never seen anything like this. Never. Not once. If you also think judging a person too soon is a huge mistake, leave a like on the video. Prince walked out of the studio and into the control room. Want to listen? David could only nod. He couldn't speak. Prince pressed play, and in that moment, The music pouring out of the control room at Sunset Sound Studios shattered all of David Leonard's beliefs about music, all his prejudices, all his rules. The song was perfect. Every instrument, every note, every vocal line was in flawless harmony. It was as if a 10-person band had spent hundreds of hours rehearsing. But this was the work of a single person, in 4 minutes, in one take. The power of the drums, the depth of the bass, the melody of the keyboard, the emotional intensity of the guitar, the pure spirit of the vocals, everything was in perfect balance. And what's more, there was no need for mixing. As Prince recorded each instrument, he had already balanced the volume levels, tones, and frequencies in his head. When the song ended, there was silence. David sat down. His hands were trembling. He couldn't breathe. This is impossible," he whispered. Prince smiled. "No, it's just different." "But how? How can you play every instrument like that? How can you hear the whole song in your head and play accordingly? How can the timing be so perfect?" Prince shrugged. "Music is a language to me. Some people can speak 5 languages. I can speak 5 instruments. They all speak the same language, just different accents." David shook his head. He was still in shock. I owe you an apology. I underestimated you. I thought you were young and inexperienced. I thought you were being arrogant, putting on airs." "Most people think that," said Prince. "But experience isn't measured by age. It's measured by passion. I've been practicing 8 hours a day since I was 7. That's 18 years, more than you." "What do you think was the biggest lesson in this video? Write in the comments." David's eyes welled up. "You taught me something today. You showed me that my prejudices were blinding me. I was judging everyone who walked into the studio by the same template. It should be this way. It should be that way. But you came in and shattered all the rules. And this is what came out of it." Prince placed his hand on David's shoulder. "Everyone has prejudices. What matters is recognizing them and changing. You gave me that chance today. You asked for 4 minutes. You gave me 4 minutes. Many people wouldn't even give that chance." David took a deep breath. "What are you going to call this song?" "I don't know yet, but it doesn't matter. The name comes later. The music always comes first." That night, as David Leonard drove home, he couldn't get it out of his mind. The song Prince had created in 4 minutes, his quiet confidence, his humble approach. Sitting in the car, he called his wife. "Diane, I'm sorry. I couldn't make it to our anniversary dinner." "I know, David, just like always. But tonight, something very special happened tonight, something that will change the history of music." Diane laughed. "You say that every time." "No," David said seriously. "This time it's different. Today I worked with a genius, and he taught me something. The real lesson wasn't about music. The real lesson was about perspective." The next morning, David arrived at the studio early. He hadn't slept a wink all night. Prince's song kept playing in his head. He gathered the other engineers in the studio. "I want to play something for you," he said. "But first, let me ask you a question. Is it possible for an artist to record an entire song in one take, in 4 minutes, with all the instruments?" The engineers laughed. "Of course not," said one. "That's nonsense." David pressed play. 4 minutes later, the room was silent. Everyone was in shock. How is this possible?" asked a young assistant. David smiled. "Because we're asking the wrong questions. Instead of asking, is it possible, we should ask, what does it take to do this?" Prince did this because he worked 8 hours a day for 18 years, because he loved, respected, and understood every instrument, because he saw music not as a process, but as a language. He wanted to speak with his manager. "I know Prince Rogers Nelson," he told the manager. "We need to give that kid unlimited studio time." The manager looked at him skeptically. "Who is this? I've never heard of him." "Everyone will hear of him soon. Invest in that kid. Now. I'm talking about the future." "David, you've been here for 16 years. You've never spoken like this before. What happened?" David looked him straight in the eye. "Last night I met a genius, and I don't want to let that genius slip away." 1984, the Purple Rain album. Material Prince recorded at Sunset Sound. The album spent 24 weeks at the top of the Billboard 200. It sold 25 million copies. It became one of the most iconic albums in music history. David Leonard was credited as a production assistant, and from that day on, he set a rule for the rest of his career. Never judge an artist by their appearance, age, or style. Give every artist a chance. Listen. Learn. Years later, he began teaching young engineers. He always told the story of March 12, 1983. Prince taught me the most important lesson that night, he would say. I used to believe that perfection takes time, but Prince taught me something else. Preparation takes time. But once you're ready, perfection can come in an instant, in 4 minutes, in one take, without a single mistake. But Professor, one of the young engineers would say, isn't that rare? Most artists aren't like that. Yes, David would say, most artists aren't Prince, but every artist has their own unique genius. Your job is to find that genius. And if you block it with your prejudices, you'll never see it. In 2016, when Prince died, David gave an interview. What did he teach me that night? The interviewer asked. David's eyes welled up. He taught me to recognize genius. Most of the time, genius doesn't come the way we expect, in a suit, polite, following the usual paths. Sometimes it comes as a 25-year-old in a purple jacket, someone who shatters all your rules, and if your prejudices blind you, you'll miss that genius. Do you feel any regret? Every day. That first moment when I underestimated him, the moment I called him son, the moment I didn't believe in him. But I'm also grateful, because that moment changed me. If I hadn't given him a chance, I wouldn't have been part of one of the greatest albums in music history. And more importantly, I wouldn't have learned the greatest lesson of my life. What was that lesson? David smiled. There's no such thing as impossible. There are only people who haven't worked hard enough yet. Prince worked for 18 years, and those 4 minutes were the crystallization of those 18 years. What about us? How hard are we working? How much are we sacrificing for our dreams? Prince showed me this. Genius isn't a talent. Genius is determination. Today, Sunset Sound Studios is still in operation. A small plaque hangs on the wall of Studio B. March 12, 1983, Prince made history here in 4 minutes, and he taught us that the impossible is just a matter of perspective. David Leonard retired in 2023 at the age of 74. In his final interview, he said, I've worked with hundreds of artists in my career, legends, geniuses, icons, but Prince was different. He wasn't just making music, he was changing reality. When something seems impossible to you, remember Prince, remember those 4 minutes, and ask yourself, am I also limited by my own biases? Am I so blind that I can't see the genius right in front of me? And then David added one more thing, the most important part of the interview. I cried on my way home that night, for the first time in years, because I realized, how many princes have I turned away? How many young, talented people have I drowned in rules, telling them, it shouldn't be like this, it should be like that? How many geniuses have I crushed with my prejudices? This bothers me. Still, every day. But Prince changed you. Yes, and that's why I'm grateful to him. He didn't judge me. He didn't crush me. He just showed me the truth, and the truth changed everything. Prince didn't just leave behind songs. He left behind dozens of stories waiting to be told. If you want to hear the rest of these stories, don't forget to subscribe and stay tuned.